Not a problem. Brett, would you mind going ahead and sharing Nina's deck on trigger categories? There's always one moment of technical difficulty during these events.
I can start introducing myself while we're getting going. So thanks for inviting me to the event. I'm super excited to speak with customers. Talking to customers as a member of the product team is one of the sort of bright moments in my days. I really enjoy hearing everyone's feedback and sharing the things that we've been working on. So my name's Nina Olding. I'm a product manager here at Zendesk. I work on triggers and automations. And in the past, I've worked on a number of other areas of support as well, but right now very focused on triggers. I'm excited to share these new features with you today. Next slide. So doing the intro right now, I'm going to talk about trigger categories, which I think is one of the reasons that you all came. And then bonus, I'm going to talk about advanced trigger search and filters, which I'm sure some of you have already used, and then take some questions and feedback as well. Next slide. So what are trigger categories? So until now, I'm sure many of you had been doing what we advised you to do to organize your triggers, which is to create dummy triggers. So that probably looked something like what you see in the bottom left of your screen there. So the before, where you would use some beautiful punctuation to distinguish your dummy triggers from the rest of your triggers in line, and you would have to create them to be triggers that didn't ever execute. So logically false triggers. This was obviously not an optimal way of managing your trigger system. So we heard your feedback, and we have created these native trigger category organizers in the UI. So this is basically just a way to group your triggers and make them easier to manage. And interact with them as categories rather than as individual triggers underneath other individual triggers. Next slide. So onboarding is really straightforward. So you've probably noticed the little well at the top of the screen that has information about trigger categories on the trigger edit page. But if you haven't seen that yet, you just go to the trigger edit page and you can click enable, and that immediately puts all of your triggers into a category, I believe called initial category. And this does not impact their execution. This is probably the biggest question that I get from customers about this feature. What happens to the execution order? The very short answer is nothing. They will still execute in order from top to bottom the same way that they always have, and they will still go through all of the different categories. This is literally just a way of interacting with them and moving them around the UI. You can collapse them, you can do lots of cool stuff, but it is just a way for you to understand and look at them more easily. It doesn't actually impact the way that they execute. And we recommend that you start from the bottom when you are initially onboarding. So if you click enable and you have your initial category with all the triggers in it, you can create at the bottom and start interacting with them that way. Next slide. Once you onboard, you can actually start to interact with your categories. So you can rename them, you can reorder them. And if you reorder your categories, it drags all of the triggers in the categories with it. So that's a really cool feature if you want to actually sort of wholesale reorganize your workflow. This is a very fast way to do it. You add a category the same way that you add a trigger at the top right of the trigger edit page. You can also add triggers in line, which is a great way to sort of interact with your trigger flow with a lot more precision than you could do previously. Next slide. And so trigger search and filters, jumping ahead, this we released actually before trigger categories, so I think a number of you have probably already seen it, but we found that customers were creating trigger names with really, really elaborate, detailed names in order to be able to find them when they were looking for them. So you would have to basically put the function of the trigger in the trigger title. You don't have to do that anymore. Now you can actually search and filter using properties and attributes of the triggers themselves. So if you're debugging, if you want to find a trigger that you know is taking a certain action, you can actually filter for that. And just a few weeks ago, we released the capability to use advanced search and filtering on custom fields as well. So you can now search on any field that you have except date fields. And that's pretty much all I wanted to share with you. Next slide. Yep, now we have custom fields. And I'm happy to take any questions. I know that was pretty quick. Happy to talk more about any of the features that we just talked about.
One question I do have, just from you mentioned that you had feedback that kind of led to this change being made. What was some of the feedback that you saw from users that kind of led to the decision, like, yeah, we definitely need to make this a change within the product?
Totally. Well, one was a lot of feedback in the community. So we definitely do pay attention to the community pages. And I know that there were a number of requests in there about ways to interact with triggers in a more elegant way than just dragging individual triggers around and creating dummy triggers. And then also individual conversations that I had with customers over the last couple of years. I knew that, especially as customers scale with Zendesk and they start to add more and more triggers, they become more challenging to maintain. So this is a way of organizing your triggers so that you can understand them more easily.
Also, this does prove that PMs do definitely look at the product feedback area of the forums.
Yes, totally.
I
can answer a couple of these questions. So the API has an optional category attribute when you are creating a trigger. If you don't select a category, we will just default to the last one for you. And you can create categories using the API as well. What happens if you mess up your order? So I love a little bit more detail on this question. When you implement categories, we don't change the order at all. So there's not really any way to mess it up. And if you mess it up, like as you're moving triggers around, it would just be the same way that you do today, where you drag them back where you want them to be, or you move them back where you want them to be if you're using the API.
By the way, that question was submitted by Susan. So Susan, if you could give us a little bit more follow-up on that question, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, and I can actually speak as well. My design partner and I have been interested in the questions that people have about the ways that they perceive categories impacting the order. So if you do want to elaborate on that for us, that would be really helpful. And the automations, yes, we are thinking about this. We have no immediate plans to do this, but it is on our radar, and it's something that we would really, really like to tackle. We're doing triggers first because they're more heavily used, and it seemed a bigger area of urgency because of their impact on the actual ticket phase. Kyle asked a question about app created triggers. That's actually a bug. We're fixing that pretty much as we speak. So expect a fix for that soon. You will be able to move those triggers into other categories. Chris, I agree that the automations UI should match the trigger UI, and we will work on that.
So it looks like Susan followed up. We have some triggers that are specific to groups, but some that are generic. So we need those ahead of the group ones. Sometimes the type of actions are the same.
I see. Okay, yeah, it's really up to you how you want to order them. So basically anywhere that you have a dummy trigger right now, you could have a trigger category element. And it won't do anything to the way that they execute. So you could put your generic triggers above your group specific triggers and have a generic triggers category, or you could just have your generic triggers living in the group categories. Whatever you do today will work in trigger categories as well, and it won't really have any impact. Sorry, I'm reading quickly.
No, not a problem.
How many conditions can you use to filter and search for triggers? I don't know that off the top of my head. It's more than one. I think you can stack them. I'm sure there is a limit, but I'm not sure what it is right now. But give it a try. If there are not enough for your needs, then give us the feedback, and that would be interesting for us to know. There's no pick your position option anymore when you select multiple triggers. I will need to take a look at that. I'm sure there is, we wouldn't have taken that away without giving you another way to do that. Let me take a look at that and get back to you.
And just to kind of recap on the Q&A, I know we're answering a lot of these live. We will go ahead after the event and compile a Q&A list of everything we've covered here. So don't worry if you feel like you've missed one of the questions we've answered live. There will be a publication that goes over this in more detail after the event. Expect it early next week, though. Definitely won't be out until after the week is over.
Regarding Susan's comment about not using dummy triggers, I'm saying dummy triggers, but you can really sub in like any way of organizing triggers that you have today, whether that's like you name triggers a certain way, whatever you use to organize triggers today, you can use trigger categories for, and it won't impact that. You can you can put everything under one category. I don't recommend that you do that, but you can create sort of as many categories as you want and drag and drop your triggers, and it won't impact anything beyond the order of the triggers that you see. They will still run from top to bottom and ignore the presence of categories. To delete a trigger category, all the inactive triggers in that category needs to be deleted. Yeah, so you would create a new category, move your triggers to that new category, and then you should be able to delete the category. The reason for that is that we don't want your triggers to sort of be floating without a category. But yes, you just need to remove all of the triggers from it, either by deleting the triggers or by making the category empty. Yes, automations will catch up to this at some point soon, I hope. That is on our roadmap. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Nina, for answering all those questions. If you guys have more on this, on her area of the product, by all means, keep asking them. We're going to move on to JJ with his presentation, but at the end, we are going to slot about 5 to 10 minutes specifically for more Q&A. So please keep those coming. These are fantastic. And again, we will be publishing a summary of the Q&A after the event next week. Awesome. Well, JJ, take it away on redaction.
Sweet. Thanks, Nina. That was smooth. I can share my screen.
I'm going to go ahead and share your presentation right now. Bear with me 1 second.
I can just share my screen if you need.
Oh, no, I got it right here. Does everyone see that?
Sweet. Everyone, JJ here, Senior PM at Zendesk. So I've been focused on Agent Workspace integrations in the past year. So basically, Agent Workspace working with redaction, tabs, macros, apps. And we'll be shifting gears a little bit this upcoming year to design systems, or support apps, and just making the UI more flexible, extensible, and configurable. So let's get to ticket redaction, Agent Workspace. So redaction, according to the dictionary, is the censorship or obscuring or deleting, removing part of a text or content for legal, security, or compliance purposes. Next slide, please. So redaction is important to us and you because end users or your customers could send you PII, like SSNs, credit card numbers, phone numbers, their credentials, IP addresses, their eye color, medical conditions, if you're subject to HIPAA. And it doesn't even have to be PII, right? They could send you, expletives that you probably don't want living around in your Zendesk instance. So redaction is a way to, remove any PII or anything that you don't want from your Zendesk instance, so that you could, work towards compliance regulations like GDPR, CCPA, and HIPAA. Next slide, please. So we offer 2 ways of redacting information in ticket comments today. One is the ticket redaction app, which you can download from the marketplace. So it's a manual method of redaction. And there's the REST API, which you could use to write a script to do bulk and programmatic redactions. Next slide, please. So yeah, redactions are pretty common. Our customers have a healthy hygiene of redacting. We see around 3 million redactions of content per week across our entire customer base. Next slide, please. So everything's good, right? But what's the issue here? For both the app and API, there's been a slew of backlog issues that we've been seeing, requested from the community, our customers, and it's just been piling up. Some are unable to redact content from chat messages in Agent Workspace, unable to redact content in closed and archive tickets, unable to redact any content that has rich text formatting, basically bolds, italics, anything that has any special HTML applied to it. If it's in multiple lines, if your content is in multiple lines, you can't redact entire paragraphs, apostrophes, choke out. And users are unable to redact content in Zendesk messaging, which we just launched a couple months ago. So do you mind if I share my screen real quick to show a demo?
Oh.
Sweet. And so I'm sure many of y'all have experience. So here's how the existing Trigger Redaction app works. You copy and paste. So this will work. It should work. Just because it's plain text. It also kind of takes a while. Okay. Okay, yeah, that works. However, this line, you can see, has italics in the credit card number. Text does not occur in ticket because under the hood, there's actually italic tags. Same with bolds. Just because there's bold tags here, multi-line text. Oof. Right, because there's line breaks here. Any chats that were generated in Agent Workspace, even though it doesn't have italics. Redaction was successful. Refresh the page. Let's refresh to see if it actually worked. And it did not, which is a problem. Can we go back to the president?
Mm-hmm.
And so we've heard that, and this makes sense. Customers end up just deleting the entire ticket, which is honestly a little overkill and destroys their transaction conversation record with their customer. At the end of the day, we assume you all just want to remove the sensitive information rather than having to delete the entire ticket. And next slide, please. So our solution is building this native, which is a byproduct of fixing API, or essentially creating a new API, just because under the hood it was a lot of regex going on. And so this will eventually, not now, eventually replace the ticket redaction app. Next slide, please. And so it solves everything that I listed out in the previous slide. Next slide, please. And so do you mind if I share my screen one more time? And so with native redaction functionality in Agent Workspace, you can just hover your mouse over the comment. Right? You can see a 3-dot ellipses associated with that comment. Click on it, press redact. Highlight what you want to redact. As we recall, this wasn't redactable in app, redaction. Press redact. Redaction successful. Same with this. Redact. Redaction. You do multiple redactions in one go. You can redact images, attachments, change your mind. Yeah. You can see that attachment is redacted. Same with the info. And you could do that for multiple comments as well. And so hover here to redact anything in this comment, hover here to redact anything in this comment. Or redact the name, redact as such. And so it works for chat messages as well. Highlight, try to redact, mark it. There you go. For closed and archived, that works as well. We haven't launched that yet, but will be soon in the next month. However, redactions in chat and fixing the rich text formatting and redactions have been launched already, 100% to all accounts on Agent Workspace. So if you're on Agent Workspace, you should be able, and you have redaction permissions, you should be able to see the redact functionality without having to enable anything.
Awesome.
Great. Go back to the slides, please. And as I said, so we did launch, the native experience, which fixes rich issues and chat comments earlier in March. And the second release is scheduled for mid-May. Dev is temporarily focused on some reliability and stability in other areas of the product, and so that's why it's taking a little bit longer, but it'll be there soon. Next slide, please. So all accounts on Agent Workspace will get it, regardless of your plan. Once it's live, no enablement needed. Everyone who has access will have it. We won't be enabling this functionality on the Classic or non-Agent Workspace. Next slide, please. And so who within your company gets permissions within that account to redact? So it's the same permissions as the app today. All admins have access by default, but agents could only get it if they're in a role that has the delete ticket permissions turned on. So an admin would have to make that set up. Next slide, please. So what will happen to the app? We'll turn it off eventually, not for a while. Well, we want to ensure that the new experience is working as intended. Seems like it is, but we're still leaving the app around for a while. It'll always be available in non-Agent Workspace. Next slide, please. The existing redaction API will continue to work as is. It'll always be there. We'll eventually open up a new redaction API that will work with closed archive tickets, chat, and Zendesk messaging. And again, the existing API will still continue to exist if you're using it in production today. Next slide, please. We've heard a use case around pattern-based PII detection, just because oftentimes it's manual work to look for PII in your instance, and sometimes you may find out about it too late. So this is tentative, but a couple of our sister teams are scoping the potential build-out of our standalone navbar app that leverages both an ML-based, machine learning-based PII detection algo. We're looking to use AWS Comprehend for this, and regex input-based PII detection. So you could write your own regex to look for, to detect any patterns of text you potentially want redacted. And so ML-based PII detection algorithm will be able to automatically detect common entities like phone numbers, credit cards, IP addresses, and so forth. Next slide, please. The status of automated credit card redaction will continue to work as is. So this is, if you don't know about this, this is basically if a credit card number comes into your support by email or via chat, it's automatically redacted in flight. And so by the time it lands from your customer to your Zendesk, it's redacted without you having to touch anything. Next slide, please. Once content's redacted, no one is able to access the original content. So redaction is permanent and completely purges the content from ever surfacing again in your instance. Next slide, please. We've also heard the feedback about ticket fields. So if you want to redact PII in your ticket fields, you can. For non-closed archive tickets, just change the value of the field before it's closed and archived. But if you want to redact PII on ticket fields for closed and archived tickets, I would keep raising this as a feature request to support at Zendesk.com with the use case and justification. Unfortunately, I'm not the PM on this, but if it reaches critical mass, they will prioritize finding and executing a solution for this. Next slide, please. And I think that's it. Cool.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us, JJ. I do have a couple questions, by the way, on some of the things you brought up. Will users have a warning before the app's closed out?
A warning? Yes, we will send comms to any accounts, to the admins of accounts that have the app installed and enabled on their account.
Okay.
And we won't be doing this for a while, and we'll send these warnings in advance. Like, hey, admin, we'll be deprecating the ticket redaction app. Please use the native redaction functionality in 60 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we did get a handful of questions actually from our Q&A. So we do have about a good 15 minutes left. So let's start working through those. And again, if users, people here, if you have questions on anything we've talked about today, feel free to ask. Even if it's not about redaction that we just talked about, and if it's about what Nina covered, we definitely want to try to address it before the end of today's event. But let's get started with some of the questions that came in a little bit ago. I know Kyle just asked, we're using the ticket redaction app and would get under certain redaction scenarios the error or unsuccessful redaction error for 100. For example, passwords that uses an @ or a quotation in it. We do have a ticket open with us, and us being Zendesk, that it's a known issue. And he's asking, do you know if redacting these two different types of redaction content will result in this error as well?
Yeah, so with the rich text formatting fix, it should, and we could try it out right now. I actually haven't tested that edge case of @ and quotation marks, just apostrophes, but we could try it right. Oh, let me share my screen. Yep. Oh, hey, Kyle. Let's try redacting all this. I hope this works. Otherwise, this will be
moment of truth.
Ta-da! Oh my God.
Did we just do like a live beta test during this event?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's already out, so I should. But it works.
Also, Kyle followed up, is there any consideration allowing to redact text in a ticket that is in a closed state? Or is that not technically possible since it's in a closed state?
Yeah, I think Kyle might have asked this before I got to it, but yes. So once we turn on redaction for closed and archive tickets in mid-May, then it'll work.
Awesome. Next up, we have Mario. Is the ability to delete tickets still required to use the ticket redaction app?
Yeah, for agents, yes. For admins, no. So same permissions as that.
Awesome. And Kate asks, for tickets that come in via email, does this also redact the original email?
Indeed, I could show you. Share my screen, yes. Okay, so the original email, it redacts the original email in Zendesk. However, we cannot surgically go into the agent or customer's inbox in Gmail or Yahoo or their client to redact it there, but we will redact the original email in Zendesk.
Read right there, apologies. Dustin asks, is there any auditing or logging behind redaction? Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, great question. So every redaction will be an audit event you could find in your Zendesk audit logs. You could also find it, not just the audit logs, but, all right, I keep having on my screen. So this is the ticket comments, and if you click your events, you could see all in your event log as well. And so you have a history of record of any redactions, but of course you can't see what was redacted.
Excellent. Can the permission to redact be restricted by role or group?
By role, yes, by role. By role or group. Or group? Just role.
Just role right now?
Yeah, just role. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. And then Jamie asks, I have asked my question too early. I have read about ticket redaction in Agent Workspace. Do you all have plans to add redaction to individual messages in side conversations? Today, since we cannot delete a side conversation already sent, we have to end up deleting the entire ticket if we find P2 in a side conversation email. Then we have to choose whether to delete the entire ticket conversation, which creates other challenges.
Yeah, I was just chatting with our side conversations PM, Toby, you might have met him before, about implementing redactions in side conversations. And he said that there's a good chance he'll get it done sometime in the latter half of 2021 using the technology we built. Again, it's tentative, but he seemed to have a high level of confidence there.
Awesome. Next we have Daniel, and he asks, is there a way of doing this before any agent sees it, or a way to still programmatically use this functionality?
Yeah, well, not right now, but well, you could do that for credit cards using the existing automated credit card redaction feature, as in it redacts credit cards in flight, so it redacts it before it lands in the instance. But however, for the pattern-based PII detection, the sister teams are also looking into building in functionality of not just detection but auto redaction if either the regex input catches it or the ML detection algorithm catches it. So this is still being scoped. No hard commitments yet, but we've heard, well, we hear your use case loud and clear.
Excellent. Gatus asked, can this be done for tickets in closed state?
Yes, in May. We'll launch that iteration in mid-May.
Awesome. And then Sydney asks, this may have been answered already, but can you confirm if the ticket redaction app can be used without delete permissions?
Without delete permissions. Only if you're an admin. If you're an agent, you need the delete permissions.
Okay. And then Tina asks, can this be used to redact P2 from ticket metadata as well?
Ticket metadata, as in the ticket fields. Tina, do you mind expanding in the comments of which ticket metadata specifically? Because for ticket fields, we have those methods that I chatted about, where you could delete ticket field information from non-closed and archive tickets. But for closed and archive tickets for ticket fields, we would need the PM to prioritize that. Ticket metadata that appears in the footers of ticket comments when viewing events. I see. That's basically, I believe, Tina's referring to this. Right. So when you're viewing events, it's below. Fortunately, not. Our legal team has actually brought this up, and they're looking at solutions on how to scrub this if the customer does want it scrubbed.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we still have a couple minutes left, but so far we definitely got through a lot of questions. So thank you, JJ. Thank you, Nina, for coming on and answering questions live. We know that your time is precious, but we do really appreciate you guys taking an hour out of your day to talk with us about this. Also, we did get quite a bit of questions about this, these two topics. So if we do find that we have a lot more questions coming in after the event, one of the post questions in the survey you'll get after this event is, if you have any more questions on this topic, we will be willing to host a Q&A on this if there's enough demand for it, for sure. That's, I think, going to be it for today, unless we have any more questions. Thanks, everyone, for participating in this. We do love hosting these, and we plan on hosting more of these in the future. Also, I have not forgotten, I know that many of you ask questions, really great ones in the community. And the person who's going to be getting something from us, as soon as my random number generator finishes, is Kate. So congrats, Kate. You're going to be getting a snazzy new mug from the Zendesk community team. I'll be going ahead and sending that to you in the post summary of this event. And all you have to do is follow the link and you can claim your prize. So big congrats to Kate on winning that from us. Unless we have any more questions, though, I think we're going to wrap it up today. Then again, thanks to everyone who participated. Thanks for showing up for these. We do have more coming down the pipeline in terms of future events. Our next one's actually going to be on the 22nd of April, and it's going to be focused on how Zendesk does knowledge capture. For those of you who attended our last event on KCS, Maddie Davis and the rest of the self-service team will be going over that in detail. So exciting stuff coming up. But that's it for us today. Have a great rest of your day. And for those who only work a 4-day week, enjoy your weekend. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.